"Don't hurt me," the Apache woman whispered to the lonely cowboy who saved her from drowning. The river moved fast that evening. Cold water rushed over dark stones, making a deep sound that filled the quiet land. The sky was turning orange and purple as the sun slowly went down. Birds were flying back to their nests, and the wind moved gently through the tall grass. It should have been a peaceful time, but for the young Apache woman, it was the most frightening moment of her life. She was running. Her feet were bare, sore, and bleeding from sharp rocks and thorns. Her breath came out in broken gasps. Every sound behind her made her heart beat faster. She did not look back. She was afraid that if she did, fear would freeze her in place. All she knew was that she had to keep moving. She had already been running for hours, hiding during the day and moving when she could. Her body was weak, but her will to survive was strong. When she reached the river, her heart sank. The water was wide and fast, much stronger than it looked. She did not know how to swim well. The river felt like a wall blocking her path. Behind her was danger. In front of her was water that could take her life. She stood there shaking, tears running down her dusty face. She heard a sound behind her. It was far away, but it was enough. Panic filled her chest. She did not think anymore. She stepped into the river. At first, the cold shocked her body. The water rushed around her legs, pulling hard. She tried to move forward, but the river was stronger. Within seconds, her feet slipped on the stones below. She fell, and the water pulled her under. She struggled, waving her arms, trying to breathe. The river filled her mouth and nose. Her chest burned. She tried to scream, but no sound came out. Her thoughts became confused. Faces from her past flashed in her mind. Her mother, her village, the land she loved. She thought this was the end. Her strength faded and her arms stopped moving. On the riverbank, a cowboy rode slowly on his horse. He was a tall man with a tired face and quiet eyes. His clothes were worn from years of work under the sun. He lived alone on his land and spoke to very few people. He preferred the silence of open fields and long rides over crowded places. The world had taken too much from him, and he had learned not to expect kindness anymore. As he rode, he noticed something strange in the river. At first, he thought it was a fallen branch. Then it moved again. His eyes narrowed. He saw an arm rise from the water and disappear. His heart jumped. He did not think. He kicked his boots out of the stirrups and jumped from the horse. He ran toward the river, pulling off his hat as he went. The cold water hit him hard as he stepped in, but he pushed forward. He followed the movement in the water, swimming with strong strokes. He reached her just as her body stopped fighting. He grabbed her arm and pulled her close. She was light, too light. He fought the current, moving toward the bank with all his strength. The river did not want to let go, but he refused to give up. After what felt like forever, he reached shallow water and dragged her onto the ground. She lay still on the riverbank, her skin pale, her body shaking from the cold. The cowboy knelt beside her. He checked her breathing and listened carefully. After a tense moment, she coughed and turned her head, water spilling from her mouth. She was alive. Relief washed over him. He took off his jacket and wrapped it around her shoulders. He built a small fire using dry wood nearby. His movements were calm and careful. He had learned long ago that panic never helped anyone. The woman slowly opened her eyes. Everything felt strange. The sky above her was darkening, and the firelight flickered nearby. She tried to move but felt pain and weakness in her body. When she saw the man sitting close, fear rushed back into her heart. She pulled the jacket tighter around herself and tried to move away. Her voice came out weak and shaking as she whispered, "Don't hurt me." The words struck the cowboy deeper than he expected. He froze for a moment, then slowly raised his hands to show he meant no harm. He stayed where he was, giving her space. "I won't," he said softly. "You're safe." She did not answer. Her dark eyes watched him closely, filled with fear and mistrust. Her body was tense, ready to run even though she barely had the strength to stand. Every part of her showed that she had learned not to trust anyone. The cowboy noticed her torn clothing, the marks on her arms, the way she flinched when he moved. He had seen fear before, but this was deeper. This was the fear of someone who had been chased, trapped, and hurt. He placed a canteen near her and gently pushed it closer with a stick so he would not touch her. "Water," he said, "when you're ready." She waited a long time before reaching for it. Her hands shook as she drank. Each small action showed how hard it was for her to trust even simple kindness. The fire crackled quietly between them. The night grew colder and stars began to fill the sky. Neither of them spoke much. Silence hung heavy, but it was not empty. It was full of questions, pain, and things left unsaid. The cowboy sat a short distance away, staring into the fire. Saving her had brought back memories he tried to keep buried. He had once failed to save someone important in his life. That loss had turned him into a man who avoided attachments, who believed it was safer to stay alone. But seeing her struggle in the river had broken through that wall. The woman watched him from the corner of her eye. She noticed that he did not stare at her or move too close. He did not ask questions or demand answers. He treated her like a human being, not a problem. Her breathing slowly became steady. The warmth of the fire reached her bones. For the first time in many days, she was not running. Her body was still afraid, but her mind felt a small moment of rest. She did not know who this man was or what would happen next. All she knew was that he had pulled her from the river when he could have ridden past. That small act confused her more than cruelty ever had. The river continued to flow beside them, carrying away the fear, the struggle, and the moment that had nearly ended her life. Neither of them knew it yet, but that river had tied their paths together, even if only for a short time. As the fire burned low and the night grew deeper, two lonely souls sat near the water, both wounded by life, both unsure of the future, and both changed by a single moment of choice. The night passed slowly. The fire grew smaller and the cold air wrapped itself around the land. The river kept moving, never stopping, as if it did not care about the fear and pain it had witnessed. The Apache woman sat close to the fading warmth, her knees pulled to her chest. She did not sleep. Every sound made her alert. The snap of a branch, the call of an animal, even the movement of the man nearby made her tense. The cowboy stayed where he was. He could see fear written in every line of her body. He understood it well. Long ago, fear had lived inside him too, after loss had taken everything familiar away. He did not try to speak much. He knew that words, when spoken too soon, could feel like pressure. As the sky slowly changed color, turning from dark blue to soft gray, the woman finally closed her eyes for a few moments. Her body gave in to exhaustion. She slept lightly, waking again and again, but sleep still found her in small pieces. When the sun rose, the cowboy stood up quietly. He walked a short distance away and tied his horse to a tree. He gathered more wood and started the fire again. The smell of smoke and warmth filled the air. The woman opened her eyes and saw him moving. Fear rushed back into her chest. She pulled herself backward, her hand reaching for a sharp stone nearby. Her heart beat fast. She expected shouting, anger, or force, but none of that came. He noticed her movement and stopped right away. He slowly stepped back and sat down. His voice was calm. "Morning," he said gently. She did not answer. He placed a small piece of bread on the ground and pushed it toward her with his boot. Then he moved back again. "Food," he said. "You need strength." She stared at the bread for a long time. Hunger twisted inside her, but fear held her still. Finally, her hunger won. She reached out, grabbed it quickly, and pulled it close like someone afraid it might be taken away. She ate slowly, watching him the whole time. He turned his eyes away to give her space. That small action meant more to her than she could explain. After she finished eating, she wiped her hands on her clothes and sat quietly. The cowboy drank from his own canteen. He did not offer questions. He knew she would speak when she was ready. Hours passed like that. The sun climbed higher. The land around them came alive with sound. Birds called to each other. Insects buzzed softly. The river sparkled under the light. Finally, the woman spoke, her voice low and unsure. "Why did you save me?" The question surprised him. He thought for a moment before answering. "Because you were drowning," he said simply. That was reason enough. She looked down at her hands. She had never heard an answer like that before. No reward, no demand, just a reason that felt honest. She hesitated, then asked, "You are not afraid of me?" He looked at her carefully. "I don't see a reason to be." Her shoulders relaxed just a little. They stayed near the river that day. The woman was too weak to travel far. The cowboy offered her his jacket again when the wind picked up. This time she accepted it without pulling away. He noticed her injuries, scratches, bruises, signs of long days without rest. He did not touch her without permission. When he offered help, he did it with words, not hands. As the day went on, she slowly shared pieces of her story. Not all of it, just enough. She spoke of her people, of land that once felt safe. She spoke of fear that came without warning, of running when she should have been resting, of choosing the river over what waited behind her. She did not describe details. She did not need to. Her eyes carried the weight of it. He listened without interruption. He did not judge or question her choices. When she stopped speaking, he nodded, showing he understood. "I won't let anyone find you here," he said quietly. She studied his face, searching for signs of lies. She found none. As evening came again, clouds gathered in the sky. The air felt heavy. The cowboy suggested moving to a small shelter nearby, an old wooden structure he used during long rides. He explained it clearly and waited for her answer. She agreed after a long pause. They walked slowly. He stayed a few steps ahead so she could see his hands at all times. The shelter was simple but dry. Inside there was space, blankets, and another fire pit. The storm arrived soon after. Rain hit the roof hard. Thunder rolled across the sky. The woman flinched at every loud sound. Memories she tried to forget came back with each rumble. The cowboy noticed her shaking. He spoke softly, reminding her where she was. "It's just weather," he said. "It will pass." She hugged the blanket tighter around herself. Tears filled her eyes, but she did not let them fall. As the storm continued, the cowboy stared into the fire. His thoughts went back to his own past. He remembered a time when he had trusted easily, when life felt full. That time ended with loss he never learned to speak about. Since then he had chosen loneliness over pain. Yet here he was, sharing a shelter with a stranger whose fear matched his own in a different way. When the storm finally slowed, the woman spoke again. "You could have left me," she said. He nodded. "I could have. But you didn't." "No," he replied. "I didn't." That answer stayed between them. Later that night she slept more deeply than before. The steady sound of rain and the warmth of the fire calmed her. The cowboy stayed awake, keeping watch, making sure no one came near. In the quiet moments, he realized something had changed inside him. Protecting her did not feel like a burden. It felt like a second chance, to do something right, even if only for a short time. By morning, the storm had passed. The land smelled fresh and clean. The woman stepped outside and looked at the open sky. For the first time in a long while, she felt a small sense of safety. She was still afraid. Her journey was not over, but fear no longer controlled every breath. The cowboy stood beside her, not too close, not too far. Two people shaped by loss, standing in the quiet after the storm, unsure of what would come next, but no longer completely alone. Morning light spread gently across the land. The air was fresh after the rain, and small drops of water still rested on leaves and stones. The Apache woman stood quietly outside the shelter, breathing in the clean smell of earth. For a moment, she forgot to be afraid. The open sky above her felt wide and calm, like it once had long ago. The cowboy came out a short while later. He carried a small pot and set it near the fire. He moved slowly, careful not to startle her. Over the last 2 days, he had learned her fear was not loud or sudden. It lived quietly inside her, always watching, always ready. They ate a simple meal together. No words were needed at first. Silence no longer felt dangerous. It felt like rest. After eating, the woman sat on a flat stone near the shelter. She wrapped the blanket around her shoulders and stared at the distant hills. The cowboy leaned against a wooden post, his hat low over his eyes. He waited. She spoke without looking at him. "I did not plan to come this far," she said. He nodded, letting her continue. "I only wanted to reach the trees," she went on. "I thought I could hide there. But fear pushed me forward." Her voice shook slightly, but she did not stop. Speaking seemed to take something heavy out of her chest. She told him about her people, how they once lived close together, sharing food, stories, and long evenings by the fire. She spoke of songs sung by elders and lessons taught through simple actions. That life felt far away now, like a dream fading with time. She explained how trust had been broken slowly, not all at once, how promises were made and then forgotten, how safety turned into something uncertain. She did not say names or places. She did not need to. The meaning was clear. The cowboy listened carefully. He had heard stories like this before, but never this close, never spoken so quietly and honestly. He felt anger rise in his chest, not sharp and wild, but deep and heavy. "I ran because staying meant losing myself," she said. The river felt like the only door left open. He understood that choice more than he wanted to admit. After a while she asked, "Why do you live alone?" The question surprised him. He had not expected her to ask about his life. He stayed silent for a moment, then spoke. "I used to have a family," he said. "A small one, simple. We didn't have much, but it was enough." He stopped, his jaw tight. She did not push him, she waited. "They're gone now," he finished. After that, being around people felt empty. She turned her head and looked at him, not with fear but with understanding. "Loneliness can feel safer," she said softly. He nodded. "Yes, it can." The day passed slowly. They stayed near the shelter, talking in small pieces. Sometimes they spoke. Sometimes they sat quietly, watching the land. The woman began to move with more confidence. She no longer flinched every time he stood or walked. In the afternoon, he showed her a path leading away from the river. "If you want," he said, "this road can take you closer to the hills. Fewer people travel it." She looked at the path, then back at him. "You don't have to help me anymore." "I know," he replied. "But I will if you want." That night they shared another fire. The sky was clear, filled with stars. The woman looked up, pointing out shapes she remembered from her childhood. The cowboy listened, learning names and stories tied to the stars. For the first time she smiled. It was small, quick, but real. He noticed it and felt something loosen inside his chest. He had forgotten how powerful a simple smile could be. As the fire burned low, she grew quiet again. Her hands twisted together in her lap. "There is something else," she said. "People may still be looking for me." His body stiffened. "Do you know how close they are?" "I don't," she answered honestly. "But fear does not leave easily." He understood that too well. "I won't let anyone take you back," he said firmly. She looked at him, searching his face again. This time she believed him. Late that night, the sound of distant movement reached their ears. A branch snapped somewhere far off. Both of them froze. The woman's breath caught and her body tensed. The cowboy stood slowly, his eyes scanning the darkness. He listened carefully. After a long moment, the sound did not return. "It's gone," he said quietly. She nodded, but sleep did not come easily after that. The next morning, they decided it was time to move. Staying in one place too long felt dangerous. The woman packed what little she had. The cowboy prepared his horse. They traveled slowly, taking paths hidden by tall grass and trees. He walked beside her at times so she would not feel left behind. When she grew tired, they rested. Along the way, she spoke more freely. She told him her name and the meaning behind it. He shared stories of long rides, quiet nights, and lessons learned the hard way. By late afternoon, they reached a high ridge overlooking the land. From there, the woman could see far into the distance. "This is where we part soon," she said. He nodded, though the thought tightened his chest. They sat together on the ridge as the sun lowered. Neither of them wanted to say goodbye yet. Their connection had grown quietly without force or expectation. They did not promise anything. They did not need to. What they shared was real, built on trust, respect, and survival. As the light faded, the woman stood and wrapped the blanket tighter around herself. She looked stronger now, steadier. "Thank you," she said simply. He met her eyes. "You don't owe me anything," she nodded. Then she turned toward the path ahead, ready to continue her journey. Behind her, the cowboy watched until she disappeared into the land. He felt sadness, but also peace. Two lives, once broken in different ways, had crossed paths and changed each other. And though the road ahead remained uncertain, neither of them was the same as before. The sun was low when they noticed the dust in the distance. It rose in a thin line, moving slowly across the land. At first, it could have been nothing, wind, animals, or travelers passing far away. But both of them felt the same tight feeling in their chests. The land was quiet, and that kind of dust did not appear without reason. The Apache woman stopped walking. Her body went still, like a deer sensing danger. She did not need to speak. The fear in her eyes said everything. The cowboy followed her gaze. He narrowed his eyes, studying the horizon. Years of living close to the land had taught him how to read signs others missed. The dust was too steady, too purposeful. "They might be close," he said quietly. Her hands trembled. She wrapped her arms around herself, trying to stay calm. "I thought we had more time." He took a breath, steadying himself. Panic would not help. "We still have choices," he said. "We just have to be smart." They moved off the path and into a cluster of low trees and rocks. The cowboy led the way, choosing ground that would hide their tracks. He walked carefully, stepping on stone when he could, brushing away marks in the dirt with a branch. They reached a narrow ravine where the land dipped sharply. From above, it looked empty. From below, it offered cover. "Stay here," he told her, "no matter what you hear." Her eyes widened. "What about you?" "I'll lead them away," he said. "They won't expect it," fear mixed with worry on her face. "That's dangerous." He gave a small, calm smile. "So is standing still." He handed her his canteen and a piece of cloth. "If I don't come back by nightfall, follow the path north. It curves around the ridge and leads to safer ground." She grabbed his sleeve before he could turn away. Her voice was barely a whisper. "Please don't leave me." The words struck him hard. He gently placed his hand over hers. "I'm not leaving," he said. "I'm protecting you." She nodded slowly, though tears filled her eyes. She released his sleeve and stepped back into the shadows of the ravine. The cowboy climbed out and moved in the opposite direction. He walked openly now, leaving clear tracks. He even called out once, pretending to speak to someone unseen. He wanted to be noticed. Not long after, voices carried across the land. The sound of horses followed. His heart beat faster, but his face remained calm. He kept walking, steady and sure, like a man with nothing to hide. When they reached him, they asked questions. He answered carefully, never giving more than needed. He spoke of empty land and long rides, of seeing no one for days. His voice was firm, confident. They searched around, but the ravine stayed hidden. The land protected its secrets. After what felt like hours, the group finally moved on, heading farther south. The cowboy waited until the sound of hooves faded completely before turning back. By the time he returned, the sky was turning orange. The Apache woman stepped out from the shadows the moment she saw him. Relief washed over her face, and she let out a breath she had been holding for too long. "You came back," she said. "I said I would," he replied. They did not speak much after that. The danger had drained them both. They walked quietly as night fell, moving toward higher ground. They made camp in a hidden place among rocks. The cowboy built a small fire, keeping it low. The woman sat close, her knees pulled up, staring into the flames. "I thought I had lost hope," she said after a long silence. But today, you reminded me that some people still choose to stand between danger and others." He looked at her, surprised by her words. "I didn't always," he said honestly. "There was a time I looked away," she turned to him, "and you regret it." "Yes," he said, "every day," she nodded. "Then today mattered more than you know." The fire crackled softly. Above them, stars filled the sky again. The night felt heavy but calm, like the land itself was watching over them. They knew this could not last much longer. Each step forward brought her closer to safety, but farther from him. The next morning they reached the edge of a familiar valley. The woman stopped and looked out over it. Her shoulders relaxed for the first time in days. "This is close," she said. "My people travel near here." He nodded. "Then this is where I leave you." Silence stretched between them. Neither of them wanted to say goodbye, but they both understood. She turned to him and placed the blanket in his hands. "You gave me warmth," she said. "I don't need it anymore." He tried to refuse, but she shook her head. "Keep it," she added, "so you remember." He accepted it quietly. They stood there for a moment longer. No promises were made. No words could fully explain what they had given each other. Finally, she turned and walked toward the valley, strong and steady. She did not look back. The cowboy watched until she disappeared from sight. The land felt quieter without her presence, but his heart felt lighter than it had in years. He mounted his horse and rode back toward his land, carrying more than he had before, not weight but purpose. Somewhere behind him, a woman walked toward safety. Somewhere ahead of him, a man carried the peace of knowing he had chosen right. And though their paths had separated, the choice they shared that day would stay with them forever. The valley opened slowly before her, wide and calm, just as she remembered. Tall grass moved gently in the wind, and the land seemed to breathe with quiet strength. The Apache woman walked forward with careful steps, her eyes scanning the distance. Every sound still made her alert, but fear no longer controlled her body the way it once had. Something inside her had changed. She stopped at the top of a small rise and looked back one last time. The cowboy was no longer there. The land behind her was empty, but his presence remained in her thoughts. She placed her hand over her chest, feeling a mix of sadness and gratitude. Then she turned forward again and continued down into the valley. As she walked, memories returned, not the painful ones but the older ones. She remembered walking beside elders, learning the meaning of patience. She remembered listening more than speaking. She remembered that strength did not always come from fighting. Sometimes it came from enduring. By late afternoon she saw signs she recognized, marks on stone, a trail shaped by familiar footsteps. Her breath caught in her throat. She slowed down, suddenly unsure. Would she be welcomed? Had too much time passed? She waited at the edge of the valley until she saw movement. A figure appeared, then another. Voices carried softly on the air. Her heart pounded. She stepped forward into view. At first they froze. Then recognition spread across their faces. Surprise, relief, tears. She did not need to explain everything. Her presence was enough. Hands reached out, not to pull her but to support her. She felt something she had not felt in a long time, belonging. As evening fell, she sat among her people near a small fire. She listened more than she spoke. When she did speak, her voice was steady. She shared only what she wished to share. No one forced her to say more. That night she slept deeply. No sudden waking, no running, just rest. Far away, the cowboy rode home under a sky full of stars. The road felt longer than usual, but his thoughts were steady. The blanket she had returned to him rested across his saddle. He touched it once, then let his hand fall away. When he reached his land, everything looked the same. The fence, the open fields, the quiet house. But he was not the same man who had left days ago. He tended to his horse, fed the animals, and moved through his routine. Yet something felt different. The silence no longer felt heavy. It felt open. That night he sat on his porch, watching the moon rise. His thoughts returned to the river, to the moment he had seen her arm rise from the water. He realized that saving her had saved something in him too, not from loneliness but from regret. Days passed, then weeks. The Apache woman slowly found her place again. She helped where she could. She walked the land with new eyes. She spoke to elders and listened to stories. Sometimes, when she was alone, she thought of the cowboy, not with longing but with deep respect. He had shown her that kindness could exist without control, without demand. She carried that lesson with her. The cowboy continued his quiet life, but now he greeted travelers instead of avoiding them. He helped when help was needed. He spoke more. He listened better. Sometimes at sunset he rode to the river. He stood where it flowed calmly now, nothing like the dangerous force it had been that day. He would remove his hat and stand in silence, honoring the choice he had made. Neither of them expected to meet again. Their lives had returned to different paths, but both paths had changed direction just slightly because of one moment, one choice, one act of courage. The land continued as it always had. Rivers flowed, seasons changed, people came and went. But somewhere between the riverbank and the valley, two lives had crossed in a way that would never fade. Not because of promises made, but because of humanity shared, and that was enough.